Hello everybody. First, let me apologize for not making videos this week. My life has been very hectic since load shedding started. My cats even wants to say hello, so you might hear it meowing in the background. And because people have started asking me to please publish your book now rather than 1st of August. I'm busy working out how to publish the book next week, and it'll be in sections or parts or a series. And the series will still be called The Last Blackout, and the first book will be called The Last Blackout Acts. And we'll see what happens with that. I'll do a presentation about that. This particular talk is about if you have a vision, a dream, then find a way to stick to it. If necessary, do other work to support yourself whilst you pursue your dream. So an entrepreneur starts a business because the entrepreneur has a dream. The entrepreneur sees a problem. The entrepreneur sees an opportunity. The entrepreneur sees something that can be fixed. The entrepreneur has some kind of dream. Some entrepreneurs are forced into it because they lose their job, and so they're just counting what they were doing. And some entrepreneurs think they're going to do something and they try to do it. And sometimes you start your business, and while you're running your business, because you're an entrepreneur, you're constantly looking at the future, and maybe, excuse me, at some point you see something. And that's what happened to me. But the point about this is that Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow says you must give up everything and only concentrate on your vision. But for me, I don't do that. I disagree with that. I think that if you have a day job or if you have income, then you should stick to your income whilst you pursue your dream. And this leads to a dichotomy, because on the one hand, you've got your dream, okay, and the dream might take a lot longer than you expect, and we're going to look at that. And on the other hand, you have your day job. Now, for me, my day job started off when I was 17 years old, when I became a programmer. A long time ago, 41 years ago. I joke BC, before personal computers, because back then we had mainframes and we had ZX80s and ZX Spectrums and Commodores and all kinds of things that don't really exist anymore. So I became a programmer, and then later on I realized that there's something else that I want to be doing, but I've always earned 99% of my income from doing programming, and or let's say 99% of the profit from doing programming. And I've also had income from other things, from consulting, from selling electricity meters, from selling energy efficiency exercises, from speaking at conferences and so on. And that's been the long-term goal. And I've met mentors and coaches over the years, and they've always said, just stick to the programming because that's where you've made all your money. And yes, but what I decided to do 20 years ago is to work 80 hours a month and break even, then have an extra 40 hours a month of working on that to create a buffer for the future, and then the balance of the time to focus on my long-term mission, my long-term dream. So I have a dream. A dreamer has a dream, which becomes a vision. A visionary has a vision, and find a way to stick to it. If necessary, do other work to support yourself whilst you pursue your dream. And here's Joey talking to us. So 2 days ago, we suddenly hit stage 6 load shedding, where Eskom is load shedding 6 gigawatts of electricity. And you can see at the bottom, businesstech.co.za, where it appeared, and the picture showing that Eskom's broken. And so this changed everything, because I know, we've had load shedding since 2008. We know we're having it until 2030 if you read the government's white papers, and we need to see where we're going in the future. So success for me is having zero impact on Earth. Success for me isn't owning the latest Rolex, or having the latest pen, or going on a holiday to Mshlanga, or being on a cruise, or buying a fancy car, or whatever. I had this dream until 2008 that I was going to buy myself a brand new C-Class. And then in 2008, the government announced feed-in tariffs. And I was in the meeting because I'd been in renewable energy since 2004. And the government invited me to be in Parliament in November 2008, when my whole life changed. And I decided to take that 300,000 Rand and invest 200,000 Rand in my own electricity system, and 100,000 Rand in America for a month, going to conferences, studying for a week, writing an exam, and coming back as a renewable energy installer. But then I didn't know about greenwashing. I didn't know that governments and even big companies say things to make the press feel good about them, but have another agenda. And so I decided that success is living off grid. Success is me making my own electricity. That's success for me. Success is me having 7 months of rainwater supply. Success for me is having food supply. Success for me is understanding what I eat, drink, breathe, and think. So when you look at my blog, my YouTube channel, you'll see it says eating, drinking, breathing, and thinking. Those are the core things. When I do those things properly, because I control what happens in my head, I don't control what happens in my body. God controls that. There's a trillion things happening in my body every second. That's under control of God. But what comes into my head, that's under my control. What I do with it is under my control. Thoughts that come along, those I'm not in control of them, but what I do with them, I'm in control of that. Joey wants to be involved. Thanks, Joey. And so Anne Frank, in her diary, said, "It's really a wonder that I haven't dropped all my ideals because they seem so absurd and impossible to carry out." And if you look in the top left-hand side here, this is a coal mine, an Eskom, a coal mine that supplies Eskom. If you look at the background there, there's a power station. If we zoom in on that power station, that's the picture on the right. That's the power station. There's pollution. There's smog. And here is something called an ash dam. The trick question is, what is Eskom's biggest product? And the answer is ash, not electricity. Anne Frank's words from her diary, "It's really a wonder that I haven't dropped my ideals." And the reason they seem so absurd is because people don't believe me. People will have load shedding. They'll buy a brand new car and then have load shedding, or they'll go on a cruise and then have load shedding, or they'll buy a new Rolex and then have load. And I don't get it. I don't even own a watch. I say to people, I've got an invisible Rolex, and I don't have a watch because my watch is on my phone. You know, if I want to see the time, there I can see the time. So I don't need a watch. I haven't worn a watch for, I don't know, since 1998, I think. I have a watch which I like to wear on a plane, so I know what the time is, but nowadays you're allowed to turn your phones on planes. Back then you weren't allowed to. Now you can even do Wi-Fi on a plane. So I keep my ideals, even though it might be impossible to carry out, because in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. So fundamentally in my heart, I still believe that you, people watching this, are good at heart and distracted by wanting to get the latest cell phone, distracted by wanting to get the latest Mac, distracted by wanting to get the latest Dell X13, I think it's called. It's a tiny little computer. Distracted by the latest entertainment, distracted by the latest movie, distracted by the latest restaurant. And yet all of those things are created by electricity. I simply can't build my hopes on a foundation of confusion, misery, and death. I mean, she was talking about the concentration camps, and she was talking about the Second World War, and she was talking about people being carted off and people being murdered, because that's what happens in war. And it's not just the warring parties. I mean, if Germany is at war with Poland, then, or, you know, there's those two countries at war, but amongst that, there's probably 10,000 private armies. I see the world gradually being turned into a wilderness. I mean, look at this. This is a wilderness, everybody. She saw Europe being disintegrated by bombing and so on. I hear the approaching thunder. I can feel the suffering of millions. Yes, I can. And yet, if I look up into the heavens, I think that it will all come right one of these days. That this cruelty to the environment, I've added to the environment, will end. And that peace and tranquility will return again. And peace in Hebrew is shalom. And shalom has got the same root as shalem, which is a shin, a lamed, and a mem. And, you know, I bring the Old Testament, the Torah, Jewish learning into my talks because that's me. So shalom and shalem have got the same letters. And the one way shalom is peace, and the other word shalem is wholeness. When I'm at peace, I'm whole. When my body is whole, I'm at peace. In the meantime, I must hold on to my ideals, for perhaps the day will come when I shall be able to carry them out. And that's how I feel. Since 1999, when I had this vision of a future, I've been believing that my idealism will become realism. And I've gone through maybe 30 different things that I've done so far to try and bring the message to people. And we're going to look at that. So I've got a video that I want to show you from the Jewish Vegetarian Society. Genesis 1:29. There's the Torah with the man holding it. To honor the Torah that Hashem gave all of Israel, which means all of humanity. Read my first book. Many Jews stay up the entire first night of Shavuot. Shavuot is the festival of receiving the Torah, receiving revelation from God after being redeemed from slavery. These Torah, what happened? Oh, my apologies. I don't know what happened. Probably load shedding, something. But we don't have load shedding at our house because we have our own electricity. Let's just reboot that. I didn't touch anything. But I'm guessing that God did this because He wants to say, here we have the revealed word of God, Hashem, the name. And if you look at Hashem backwards, it's Moshe. And Moshe tells the story of his relationship with Hashem. I believe that Hashem and Moshe are the same. Many people stay up all night, many Jewish people, many people that are praying from Torah stay up all night. Maybe it's finished. That's exciting. I wonder what happened to it. I have no idea. Okay, what I'm going to do is, I don't know why the video is short, but I'm going to put the video in after the presentation. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So the next slide, let's continue, and I'll see what I can do about putting that video in. So in 1994, I started my company, Orbital Decisions, developing bespoke software, working for small and medium-sized companies, even big companies. In 1998, I was the founder member of a synagogue, and I was looking up sermons on Eish Das and getting sermons from Israel and from other rabbis, and I was reading the sermons. I wasn't writing my own sermons. But in 2003, I started studying with Rabbi Steinhorn, and he told me, when he realized what I was learning and what my vision was for Torah and about Jacob becoming Israel, see my first book, he said, write your own sermons. And I said, but I'm not a rabbi. And he said, you don't need to be a rabbi to write sermons. You need to read the Torah. You need to bring it in to what's happening in the world today. And so by 2004/5, I had written a book. And the book was based on my discovery of Jacob and Israel archetypes. And then in 1999, I was working for a retirement company and had a glimpse that even with people who are investing 15% of their income before tax into retirement funds, even people that are buying properties, even people that are buying businesses, most of them don't have enough money to retire on. And if you retire when you're 60 or 65 and you live another 30 years, you need a lot of money. And even people that have got their money covered when they're 65, with inflation, they get to a point where they start selling stuff. And I said, there's got to be a different way. And my way, constantly reduce your cost of living. So cost of living comes down every year. In other words, if you get a 5% increase in pay, okay, don't increase your cost of living by 5%. Try to reduce your cost of living by 5%. Try to pay off your house as quickly as you can, especially when you work from your house. Your house is an asset. Your house is not a liability. If you work from your house, it's an asset because you can make your own electricity, you can make your own water, you can grow your own food, you can be in community with your neighbors. So we reduce our cost of living. We pay off our cars. We pay off all the things inside the house. We pay off our electricity system. We pay off our water system. We have energy efficiency, which means we use less electricity. And in 1986, when I left home, I decided that what I eat and drink has got to be core. Everything else is secondary. And people keep telling me, David, you spend so much money on food. And I said, but maybe I spend more money on food than you do, but you drive a 10,000 Rand car. I don't own a car. I mean, when I say 10,000 Rand car, I mean 10,000 Rand a month. People are spending $500 a month to drive a car. I don't even own a car. I spend $25 or $50, on hiring a car, on hiring taxis. And then in 2011, I read a book called Being Human by a doctor from Natal. And he said it's not only eating and drinking, it's eating, drinking, breathing, and thinking. Those 4 things are under my control. In 2001, my wife, Mariana, started working for Orbital Decisions. And I don't say work from home, I say office at home. So we moved our office to our house. In 2002, ADSL arrived in South Africa, and I moved my office to my house. And therefore, I cut my transport bill dramatically. I was already on the progress to dramatically dropping my car cost by not buying new cars, paying the car off, and then if you let's suppose you've got a repayment plan with Nedbank, or a repayment plan with Standard Bank, or a repayment with ABSA, then and it takes you 4 days to pay your car. Then you're working for the bank for 4 days. They've already paid Mercedes or Toyota for the car, so they got their money straight away. But the financial partner in the middle who you're paying every month, you've got to spend 3, 4, 5, maybe even 10 days a month working for them. And then when you finish working for them, after 5 years, you buy another car and you work for them some more, instead of working for yourself. Working for yourself is a funny thing, because when I say I'm working for myself, it means I'm working for my own account. It means that I'm trying to limit the repayments that I have every month. Yes, I do have repayments, but trying to make them as low as possible. And the reason for that is I want to be working for myself. I want to be working for my own account. My house is my castle. It's where I come. It's where I take refuge. It's where I know that I'm safe. And then in 2004, I discovered wind turbines. And I created our energy group for my 40th birthday. And I started learning about external energy. And I started understanding the relationship of external energy. External energy is electricity, water, and so on. And I understood that the way we interact is external energy. Communication is external energy. And then I started looking at internal energy the following year, when I started studying to be a Reiki master. I already knew about Reiki. I'd had treatments in London and then in South Africa, and I decided to study the body's internal energy systems. And so by 2007, I'd qualified as a Reiki master and teacher, although I've never taught, but I can if I wish to. In 2009, I started learning Tai Chi, and I was invited to become an instructor in 2015. And then in 2008-9, I bought my first power station, went to the United States for a month, and came back and discovered that the government was not intent on implementing feed-in tariffs, although they promised them. And I started speaking at conferences. And that lasted until 2016. And you'll see what happened in 2016 in a moment. In 2010, I took refuge as a Buddhist, because what happened was in about 2008-9, our Reiki teacher left Cape Town. And so I was looking for a place to meditate, and I found the Buddhist Center, the Kaju Buddhist Center in Kenilworth, where I started studying to be a Buddhist. And then Akung Rinpoche, the head of our lineage, was in South Africa for a week, and I went to a lot of his lectures. And on Saturday, he gave a lecture about taking refuge, which means becoming a Buddhist. And when he was finished, he said, "Any questions?" And I put up my hand, and I said, "I'm Jewish. I haven't really thought about converting to Buddhism, and can I be Jewish and Buddhist at the same time?" And he said, "No problem." And so I became a Jubu. I'd already read books called The Jew and the Lotus and other books where I knew that it was possible for a Jewish person to be Buddhist, but I wasn't really all that familiar with the concept. And then once we took refuge and I got a Buddhist name and all that stuff, and became a Jewish Buddhist, Akung Rinpoche announced a 3-year Bodhisattva program. A Bodhisattva is an enlightened being that keeps returning to earth after death to keep helping other people become enlightened. And there's another kind of enlightenment called an Arhat. An Arhat achieves enlightenment for his own or her own self, but never returns to earth. And there's plenty goodness in doing the Arhat way, and the Bodhisattva way is more difficult. But the Arhat is plenty great, because that having enlightened people in your midst gives you that touchstone. We call God Tsur Yisrael, which means the rock of Israel. And it's the rock because it's not stupid. It's the rock that we hold on to. It's the rock that we can lever against to make something move. And then the 3-year program became an 8-year program of weekly meetings, weekly meditations, weekly teachings, homework, reading, 3-day weekends, 10-day retreats. And it was wonderful. It was really wonderful. And in 2010, I started my power station, where I started mixing internal energy and external energy. And I realized that I didn't want to heal one person at a time. I wanted to heal my entire suburb or my country. Maybe in an ideal world, the whole world. Or even Sadhguru says, I failed. He says he failed because he's only reached 1 billion people. And there's 7 or 8 billion people on the planet. I think he's been extremely successful, but I get his message. So mine is like, I just want to work in my community and wake up my community to the possibility of abundant electricity and abundant water. Electricity at 30% less cost and water at 70% less cost, so that we have the fuel and the transport and the food systems getting cheaper and cheaper every year, and so that we have a less impact on our environment. And then in 2016, everything was going so well. Everything started getting better. I started talking more conferences. I started getting paid. I started getting VIP tickets. I started getting onto advisory committees. I was the chairman of conferences. I helped conferences to happen. I suggested conferences. And then in 2016, I was cancelled and deplatformed. It's like being crucified. You know, Jesus on the cross. He was crucified. He died. He came back. I feel like I was crucified. It took me 5 years to recover. It took me 5 years of being close to death, not physically, but mentally. And that was depression. That was learning how to cross that valley of the shadow of death and fearing no evil because God is with me. And then in 2017, Rabbi Mervis, one of the greatest Kabbalists living in Cape Town, offered to be my mentor and my coach. And I had weekly 1-hour meetings with him for 3 years. And I went to him with problems, and he used the Kabbalah and he used the Torah to explain to me what's happening and to put my problems in the context of ancient Jewish thought brought into the modern era. And it was fantastic. And unfortunately, Rabbi Mervis died just before COVID, but at some point he called me his disciple, and he gave me so much, and it's allowing me to publish my Friday messages that I'm publishing on this channel, and so on. And then 2020, COVID started, and there was suddenly a lot more time. Even though I've been working from home, I didn't need to go to clients, didn't need to go out. I was at home, my office at home, and so I published 3 books quite quickly. The first book that I wrote in 2004, which is called The Torah as an Enlightenment Toolkit. The second book, which is called A User Manual for Life on Earth. And the third book, Ramblings of an Alien. And then I published 2 short stories. But the second book, A User Manual for Life on Earth, is very dry, full of facts, but it's how to fix the planet. And then even with that, I only sold 200 copies, and most authors maybe sell 50 copies. So I was happy about 200, but obviously 200 is not 2 million. You get to bestseller when you sell 100,000 books. And so in 2022, I was looking at yet another way of trying to get my message across. And I decided that having spent 25 years in the engine room writing software for incentive and loyalty programs, I would learn how to do it myself. And so I joined the Incentive Marketing Association in America, and I started on their program and studying for their exams. I've got 2 exams, and reading their books. I bought 5 books. I downloaded 60 PDFs. I started reading and researching and studying because although I've got an MBA, I wanted up-to-date frameworks to put everything I need into the framework so that I could explain it easily and quickly. And then towards the end of May, a month ago now, I suddenly had a download, 8,000 words overnight. And I put it into Scrivener, which is my program I use for writing books, and it was 8,000 words. Now it's 20,000 words. It was going to be published on the 1st of August, but because of load shedding and people saying, please publish it, I'm hoping to publish a 65 or 70,000 word version in the next 5 days, by Monday. Watch out for that. So that book is called The Last Blackout. It'll be a series, and the first book is probably going to be called The Last Blackout Acts. So you can see in all this that I had my vision. I stuck to the vision. I sold electricity meters. I sold 400 electricity meters. I affected 400 people's lives, plus their families. I spoke at conferences. I spoke to thousands upon thousands of people, and I affected their lives. I helped make conferences happen on advisory boards to talk about renewable energy and to talk about smart grids. And even today, I believe that we still need coal and we still need gas as part of a smart grid, and we still need hydroelectric power. But by 2035, I don't think we'll need that anymore. So I personally think that we need to build hundreds and hundreds of tiny power stations that we can, when we have a cloudy day or a cloudy weekend, we can quickly ramp them up and then run them and then turn them off. So the smart grid is so integrated, it's so complex. And the nice thing about this thriller, which is a horror because it's a lot of fear, and it's science fiction because it's in the future, and it's literary fiction. It's in the future looking back at real events that may or may not have happened. and real people and what they may or may not have done. It's very exciting. It's another way of getting the message across. And I'm hoping that finally the message will come across, because it's an electrifying read that will shock you into action. If you see in the middle of the page, there's a QR code. You're very welcome to scan it. It will take you straight to the book on Amazon, a science fiction thriller. My name is David Lipschitz. I've got a computer science honors degree. I'm a scientist. I've got an MBA, a Master of Business Administration from Cranfield University in the UK. If you look behind me over there, that's my Cranfield certificate. Back then it was called Cranfield Institute of Technology. I feel so happy that I studied at an Institute of Technology for my business degree. It makes so much sense because we're integrating technology and management and science all together. And then I became a Buddhist and a Tai Chi instructor. I became a Kabbalist and a numerologist, Gematria. My email address, david@mypowerstation.biz. My cell number, +27 is South Africa. From America, it's 01127. And then 0 if you're in South Africa, 7411932246. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I'm sorry about the video from the Jewish Vegetarian Society. I'm going to see if I can find it, and I might point to it from this video. And I'm not an editor. I know that there's a lot of people saying that you need to spend a huge amount of hour of time editing. I'm not into that. You get my videos as they are, warts and all, but you get me as I am, in your office, in your mind, in your room, exactly as I am, not edited out. It's as if you're speaking to me, and if you're in my room with me and we had this glitch, we would fix the problem, or we would say we're going to solve the problem afterwards. I thank you and I bless you, and I pray that you will ask your friends to subscribe, that you will subscribe, that you'll share and like and comment and ask questions and make observations and criticize positively or negatively. I've got a strong skin, you can tell. And in my book, there's a whole chapter about building resilience. What messages happened to me that caused me to become resilient? So scan that barcode, and I'll see you in the book. Thank you very much.